once you get that set, I'm going to switch to you and do it.
I just want to thank this whole community for the support they've given us over the last year. The wrestling community has been unbelievable. The Fruitland community.
I need someone to fix the tight shot, get that back over.
All you dear friends and families who helped out your life.
Like someone that you and through.
John Fagen is an extraordinary guy.
So that's his
He loves people and he loves adventures. And more than anything else, he loves sharing those adventures with people. Most of us in this room were lucky enough to catch a ride with him in some great adventure somewhere. Whether it was scuba diving, rock and ice climbing, skydiving, skiing, motocross racing, wrestling, coaching, kayaking, the list goes on and on. Even in day-to-day life, you can turn the ordinary into a new experience. Sometimes fun, sometimes terrifying, but always a great story. Today, I'm pretty sure there will be tears of loss, but I pray there will be many more tears of laughter and enjoyment, and remembering some of the special adventures he took us on. He may have passed too young, but he never lost his memory.
We're going to pray before we do it. You've got one of these. You want to just take it out, put it on silent, or put it on airplane mode.
They run the tight shot, you know?
Let's pray. Father God, as we come before you today, most of us with floods of emotion. Some of us hurting, some of us a little numb, and some who are angry, maybe angry. My prayer, Lord, is that we will walk away from today with an even fuller picture of this large life man you blessed us with, and who we celebrate. More importantly, Lord, that we would leave our time together with a desire to touch this world the way John did, to live and love with our whole heart. Lord, let John's life speak to us, Lord, and move us to action so we can impact others the way John impacted us. In your Son's most precious and holy name we pray. Amen.
Back to tight shot.
There are two types of people in this world. The type who walk in a room and say, here I am. And the kind who walk in a room and say, ah, there you are. We all know that John was that second kind of person. Now back in the Tri-Cities, John and I grew up. There was a young man who lived by a mantra. If you're living on the, not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space. I've been enjoying watching these endless stories about this guy on Facebook and in person these last couple of weeks, and I'm looking forward to hearing more of them today. As we begin this journey of celebrating the life of our remarkable friend, I want to start us off with three things John and I shared the most with each other: our family, our sport, and our faith. We have to start with Doc, because Doc was to both of us what I think John was to many people in this room today. John and I shared a relationship with Dr. Dave Bennett, a man who took a special interest in us and who never gave up on us. After most people counted us out, Doc convinced another man who became a hero to us, a college coach named Dr. Mike Clark, to take a chance on us. Coach Clark not only shaped us, he probably saved our lives, and I don't mean that figuratively. With no Coach Clark, there would be no Patty Fagen. And with no Patty Fagen, John would not have touched this world the way he has. For those of you who don't know, I have a Patty too. Her name is Tammy. And while they're not biologically related, Patty and my sweet Tammy are twins. Here's an example that should resolve any doubt. During a typical visit from the Fagens, I was hosting a tournament that required lots of help from Tammy. And John brought a group of high school kids to wrestle. And John probably gave their parents, I don't know, maybe a 12-hour notice that their kids would be gone for 3 days competing. And I'm sure he didn't tell them they'd be stopping off in the Columbia Gorge to rappel down the face of a cliff, because I'm sure that wasn't covered on the permission slip. In Coach Fagen's defense, everybody came home safe with lifelong memories, and at least one of them with a scar that will last a lifetime, but they all made it home. The night before the tournament, John walked up behind Tammy, who was at the table working on something for me. He put his arm around her. He just put his arm right around her shoulders, and he started to apologize on my behalf for all the work she had to do on short notice. Tammy slowly turned her head, looked at him and said, "John, your wife is in the kitchen right now, so mad at you she's in tears. Maybe your apology should be directed at her." So ask any one of our amazing kids, and they'll tell you that Patty and Tammy are peas in a pod. They're basically the same person, brilliant, beautiful, incredibly strong women without any desire to impress others or appear more important, more intelligent, or more sophisticated than they are. They really are the epitome of godly women. That's our Patty and that's our Tammy. And I'm sure all 6 of our kids have asked themselves at some point the same question most people who know Patty and Tammy have. How on earth did they end up with the lights of those 2 guys? Without Doc Bennett, and by extension without Coach Clock, we would still have wrestling, we would still have our connection to each other, and some version of our faith, but not those 2 amazing ladies or the 6 unbelievable kids they ushered into this world. So thank God for Doc and for Coach Clock. Without them, John Fagen would never have been to so many of you what those 2 men were to us, family. Well, John and I are not brothers in the biological sense. We are family, and we love each other's kids as if they were our own. If I counted over the years my conversations with John about his 3 amazing kids, it would be counted in hours upon hours upon hours. He just gushed about them and how proud he was of them, how amazing they are. If you knew John, you know his heartbeat for his kids. From the time they were born right up until our last conversation, he spoke about them with such adoration and love, and I got to share their lives through their father's eyes, but with Patty's influence. Patty softened John. She has the kind of spirit that when she speaks, when Patty speaks, no matter what she's feeling inside, her voice is reassuring to those around her. I'm sure many of you have witnessed that over these past few weeks. Patty, John appreciated you more than you may ever know. I know, and he knows this too. He knows he made your life more difficult than it needed to be. But everything he did came from a place of love. And my goodness, did he love you. He wanted more for you than he could ever give. He really did. He was so proud of you. I'm sorry, it's hard to read through tears. He marveled at your strength. More than anything, John never wanted to consider where he would be without you. Tally, Nick, and Jonathan, one of the things I'll miss most about your dad is hearing about you. Because his version of what was happening in your lives was always the best version. Not just because the narrator was a great storyteller, but because the love that he had for you. Whether it was about what body of water Tally was conquering, or what an amazing mom she was, or about what part of the globe Nick was landing on or flying through, complete with the make, the model, the history, and every ending you could ever imagine about the aircraft he was flying, or hearing the blow-by-blow account of every sequence of a match where this certain situation where the boogeyman Johnny Gunn found success against a top-ranked opponent. Hearing these tales told from the heart of a father was one of the highlights of our relationship, and witnessing your many successes were his proudest moments. Coda Bear, your grandpa, cherished every moment he got to spend with you. You guys all know this. You captured his heart, his whole big heart. Long before John and I had Patty, or our sweet Tammy, and our amazing kids, we had the world's oldest and greatest sport. And the man who was John Fagen epitomizes what it means to be a wrestler. John didn't just love wrestling, he loved wrestling. He loved it in its noun form and its verb form. And I know he believed everyone wrestles because we talk about it. Figuratively, everyone wrestles, whether it's with their faith, difficult decisions, learning new things, or even complicated relationships. Everyone wrestles. And John believed that there was nothing like the sport of wrestling that challenges to help us prepare for the challenges that life throws at us. That's a belief that John and I, and I'm sure many of you today in this room, shared. It's one of the things we love about our sport. We often say about wrestling, all it takes is all you've got. And nobody can argue that John Fagen gave everything he did, all that he's got. He rarely did it in a conventional manner, but he gave his all to everything. He was committed to getting the most out of himself and out of others in everything he pursued. John's own words described how he lived. I don't go to bed bored. I go to bed tired. And whether it looked like it or not, there really was a method to his madness. The truth is, John knew where he was going, and he wanted to bring people with him. Patty put it best when she said, John crammed a lot into one life. Beyond his passion beyond his boundless energy, and beyond his dogged determination. There was a foundation for everything he did. And believe it or not, that foundation was love. I mean that sincerely. Rough, tough, hard-driving, burly John Fagen did what he did out of love. And if you didn't realize that, I would argue that you didn't really know John. Those of you who mistook his passion for anger or his reckless approach to inattention to detail, well, you missed something. John did what he did out of love. If you did anything with John, he wanted you to give it one more try, just one more try, and one more, and one more, and one more, and just one more. And he would wrestle with you through it until you got it, no matter how long it took. Now, you may not have liked it so much at the time, but you're better because of it. And that looks a lot more like love to me than just telling people what they want to hear. In wrestling, it doesn't matter what country you're from. With very few exceptions, the wrestlers who battle on the mat embrace one another off the mat. John loved that about our sport. And anyone who spent enough time with John Fagen knew one thing. They knew John loved them. The first time I ever heard the words, "I love you," from another man, those words came from John. This is something that will be familiar to a lot of you people here today, because some version of this account probably happened to you, albeit most likely with a little less wrestling. If you're here as a plus one and you didn't know John, let's just say he was not a normal human. In fact, I'm confident this room is filled with people who John Fagen has probably attacked physically. Right? Yeah, I'm sure. Some of us many, many times. Some of us while we were sleeping. Yeah, they laugh because it's true. That's not normal, but that's John. The first time he told me he loved me was right after a typical bear hug that often came right after or right before a little wrestling took place. I'm guessing lots of you in this room are very familiar with the big squeeze of a John Fagen hug. We hugged each other one day to say goodbye, and he took a collar tie with his right hand, an underhook with his left hand, and he pulled my head right into his big burly chest, and he said in my ear, "I love you, buddy." Naturally, I pummeled in, tried to get my hands locked in my hips in before he could headlock me, and I said, "I love you right back." For the rest of his life, every time we said goodbye, in person or on the phone, it was followed with, "Love you, buddy." Sometimes, typical John Fagen collar tie, and you know what that is, right? He puts his elbow right in your chest and pulls your head right there. Instead of an underhook, sometimes he just got head to head with you. And he said, "Hey." I think that was to make sure I was listening. He'd say, "Hey, I love you, buddy." John wanted to be sure he had your undivided attention because he wanted you to know he loved you. He wanted to know he believed in you. And he wanted you to believe in yourself. It's part of why this whole thing is so difficult. My sweet Tammy, who helped me make sense of the world, the same way Patty helped John make sense of the world, helped me make sense of this as well. On a particularly difficult day last week, when I was feeling a little more broken than numb, I just asked her why. Why does it hurt so much? Why do I just not want it to be real? Why is it so hard to believe? In the way that only she can, she said, "Because, Frankie, he was just like you. John didn't think you were crazy. He didn't think you were too much. You could just be yourself with John." And that's when it hit me. Sweet Tammy's words made me realize that John was to most of the people in this room exactly who he was to me. He was your best friend. He didn't think you were crazy. He didn't think you were too much. And that's where the faith piece comes in. John just loved you. I believe John saw every one of us the same way Jesus sees us. It's why it feels so good to be around him. Think about it. Did you ever feel like you needed to be somebody else around John? No, you didn't. Did you ever feel like he thought he was better than you? Like he was judging you? I bet you didn't. I bet you felt loved. I know I did. John Fagen was a man of faith. And what we witnessed when we got to spend time with him was a godly man living out his faith. While John's faith didn't look conventional, neither did the faith of the very disciples Jesus handpicked. Once again, sweet Tammy said it best when she said to me this past week, if Jesus came today, John is precisely the type of guy he would choose to be in his inner circle. The Bible actually tells us we should love the way John Fagen loved. In 1 John, it says, "Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth." John was a man of action and a man of truth. And that's how he loved. Well, he doesn't have a lot in common with the disciple who wrote those words, and shares his name, by the way. Tammy pointed out that John does bear a striking resemblance to the Apostle Peter. She's right. Here are some ways that Bible scholars describe Peter: impulsive, quick to action, passionate and intense, natural leader and spokesperson, repentant, and teachable. John was all those things. He let you in, gave you permission to be yourself. He was brash, transparent, not afraid to be himself, but also not afraid to learn. Knowing John knew Jesus is reassuring to me, because we know where he is right now. But it didn't help me deal with it until a call to Doc Bennett on another one of those difficult days last week. What Doc said was, you can blame God, or you can turn to God to help you understand what we're to learn from this. He said, you can't scream and shout and point your finger at God and accomplish much. Doc also pointed out, and John, he was so proud of John. Doc also pointed out that John's legacy was the fact that he rose above a great many challenges and produced a family that made this world a better place, which means this world is better because John Fagen was in it. Doc is right, and this room is filled with people who are better because John Fagen was in their life. I know I am. You are his legacy. We are his legacy. And I think the way we can continue to make this world a better place is by being more like John. Please understand, I don't mean that trying to get your snowmobile over 100 miles an hour just to prove it will, or attacking people in their sleep just to have a little wrestle. What I do mean is to direct that same reckless abandon toward loving others like John did. John was unique. He was one of a kind. It would be very challenging, maybe impossible, for most people to live like John, but we can all love like John. Don't take for granted this life you've been given. Wrap your arms around it. None of us knows how many days we have left. Love people. Bear hug people. Tell them you love them. Don't go to bed bored. Go to bed tired. The words I will hold with me when I think about John are the same words I would say to him right now if I got to see him ascend to heaven. I love you, buddy.
Down the road trying to loosen my load, like I said, on my mind. Oh, they wanna own me too, they wanna stone me once. She's a friend of mine. Take it easy, take it easy. Don't let the sound of your own wheels drive you crazy. What's enough, but you still can. Don't even try to understand. A better place to make your stand. Take it easy. Well, I'm standing on the corner of Winslow, Arizona, such a fine sight to see. There's a girl, my lord, in a flatbed Ford, slowing down and take a look at me. Come on, baby, don't say maybe. I gotta know if you're sweet love is gonna save me. We may lose and we may win, but we'll never be here again. So open up, white climber in, and take it easy. Running down the road, trying to loosen my load. I got a world of trouble on my mind. Looking for a lover, won't blow my cover. She's so hard to find. Come on, baby, don't say maybe. I gotta know if your sweet love is gonna save me. We may lose and we may win, but we will never be here again. So open up, white climbing in, and take it easy. We may
3, 2, 1.
Thank you all for coming today to remember the life of my father, John Gerard Fagen. I'm sure most of you here have your own John Fagen story. Some of my earliest memories of my dad are of him and his buddies sitting around telling stories, surrounded by family and friends that he treated just like family. He had an incredible ability to draw you into a story and make you feel like you were right there. Oftentimes it was hard to tell if he was telling a real story about his experience or setting up a perfectly timed punchline, which he also did better than anybody I know. My dad lived many different lives while he was on this earth. From racing motocross to competing in collegiate wrestling at the same time, summiting peaks across the U.S., scuba diving, skiing, and I could go on because I've heard every story at least 100 times. However, no matter what new hobby my dad got into, his favorite part was sharing his experience with a mostly willing participant. My dad was a teacher far beyond the classroom, and God bless my mother, Patty, for keeping up with the adventures because my siblings and I reaped rewards of their efforts. Although I'm not sure she had much choice, as I remember him telling my mom that she would be a very lonely individual if she didn't join us, because he was taking us on as many adventures as he could. There wasn't a person on the face of the earth that my dad wouldn't include on his adventures and push them past their limits, because he didn't believe in limits. To my dad, impossible only meant it hadn't been done yet. And that is what he always reinforced to his children, students, and athletes. All it takes is all you've got. There are many more mountains to climb, so friends, we've got some bouncing to do. And I have a little poem I wrote that I'd like to read called Johnny Earthquake. As an earthquake shook the ground, a child made its first sound. The schoolyard proved too soft for Johnny. Wrestling became a permanent hobby. He never learned the word relax, only full throttle on 2 strokes and snow tracks. Skiing until he completely wore out his knees. Slowing down didn't change anything. Stopping meant hanging from a rock wall. Sitting meant kayaking a waterfall. Even dreaming took him to mountain peaks. His sleeping wasn't for the weak. His coaching lacked none of the intensity, but only because he believed in me. He never hesitated to roll up his sleeves, then proceed to eat a few pints of ice cream. The ones he admired most were his family, and everyone was family to Johnny G.
Just follow her, and then we'll go to the tight shot. Okay, fade now. Okay,
It was amazing to watch my parents' relationship transform over the years. You wouldn't have met 2 people more perfect for each other these last 9 years, at least. For those of you who really know my mom, you know that she matched my dad's fierceness. They always gave each other enough space to fully be themselves. Well, maybe not always, but they grew into it. I'm so grateful I got to have them as parents growing up, to see the way they loved each other and how they stood up for themselves and for the people around them. I was so lucky to have an adventurous, resourceful dad. He was my biggest adversary as a teenager and my best lifelong adventure buddy. As he would put it, he was my dad, my teacher, my boss, pole vault and hurdle coach, kayaking, rock climbing, cliff jumping, skydiving, slacklining, wrestling, surfing, scuba diving, boogie boarding buddy, and so much more. With him, life wasn't just something we talked about, we went and lived it. Whether it was throwing rocks at my window late at night when I was 8 years old to get me to come and sneak out past my mom and sing with him while he played guitar, putting my brothers and me in the bucket of a front loader so we could clean up after we had gotten teepeed, or waking me up at 2 a.m. to go swim laps in the pond. He made everything an adventure, and I have endless memories because of that. I want to touch on my dad's resourcefulness, because in his childhood and while I was growing up, life was frugal. There was a time when he got rear-ended, and instead of fixing the bumper, he used the insurance money to buy a kayak. That being said, he could fix and make anything with his own bare hands. Our lack of funds was not a barrier to the adventure. He could take a whole group down the river and somehow find gear for everyone, and no one was allowed to get left out whether they liked it or not. He made people feel included in everything he did and everywhere he went. What used to drive me crazy as a kid is what I admire most now as an adult. So many people have reminded me that when my dad talked to you, you felt like you mattered. He believed in you, and he made sure you knew it. I'm still trying to figure out how he so effortlessly built lifelong friendships everywhere he went. And it's something I hope to carry forward, to build that same kind of connection and that same kind of life. Out of everything he did, he was most proud of his family. I've never doubted how much he loved my brothers and me. Every time I saw him, he'd say, "Some people wait their whole life to meet their heroes, and I made mine." He was the best, craziest, most annoying, and by far the most loving dad and grandfather in the world. If you knew him, you have a story, and that is his legacy. I am going to sing. It's a song that he always sang for me, and I rewrote the last verse. There's two things I know for sure. She was sent here from heaven, and she's daddy's little girl. As I drop to my knees by her bed at night, she talks to Jesus, and I close my eyes and I thank God for all of the joy in my life. Oh, but most of all, for butterfly kisses after bedtime prayer, sticking little white flowers all up in her hair. Walk beside the pony, Daddy, it's my first ride. I know the cake looks funny, Daddy, but I sure tried. Oh, with all that I've done wrong, I must have done something right to deserve her hug every morning and butterfly kisses at night. All the precious time, like the wind, the years go by. Precious butterfly, spread your wings and fly. There's a quiet moment today, and I feel the weight of all the love you gave to the life you showed me how to be strong in. I still hear you saying, "Don't be afraid, I just want you living your best life." And I leaned over and gave you butterfly kisses, wishing you could stay, holding on to every word you ever gave. I'll carry you with me, Daddy, every day. I know that you're so proud of me. I'll be okay. Oh, with all that you did wrong, you really did something right to leave this love in my life and butterfly
how do you follow that, you know? Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming and celebrating my dad's life and remembering him. I think today should be all about stories, so I'm going to start with a story. When I was young, my dad built a climbing wall in a barn just down the road with one of our friends, and we used to go climbing there all the time. With about 20 feet of vertical climbing, about maybe another 20 feet of overhang up to the peak of the barn. And I was pretty young, pretty scared, and I would do the vertical part pretty well, but then the overhang was always a little tough for me. As much convincing as my dad tried to give me, I could never get past that part. Coincidentally, one Christmas, I got a Game Boy Color. It was blue. It was really fun. I had a lot of fun with it for maybe 2.5 months, and then we got into the climbing gym, and my dad decided that when I could climb up the overhang, he'd give me my Game Boy back. So he didn't hide my Game Boy. He took it up the overhang and duct taped it to the top of the barn. So I literally had to go get it back. And I'd like to say that in that moment, I really followed my dad's example, set my mind, got up there. I did not. The Game Boy was there for about 4 or 5 months. No amount of whining to get it back. My dad would bring it down. I had to get up there. So I finally one day, 4 or 5 months later, climbed up there, got my Game Boy and brought it back down. And after getting that, of course, I felt a feeling of accomplishment, and I was really excited about conquering my fears and making that happen, just like my dad knew I would. And that was life with Dad, you know. You had 2 choices. You push the limit, you conquer your fears, have a blast doing it, go on adventures. Or in my case, he would take your toys, so you push the limit, conquer your fears, have a blast, and went on adventures. I quickly learned that if I just keep my toys safe, I can just go on the adventures, and I don't have to mess with it all. That was the thing with my dad. No matter what adventure we would go on, he was always there, right beside me, never pulling me up the mountain, but always helping me figure out where to put my feet. I learned more from the love he gave his family, friends, and life than I could ever put into words. And what I did learn is he always shared it with those around him at maximum power at all times, full throttle, like we kind of talked about. So I'm going to play a little song I wrote for my dad when I was maybe 11, 12 years old on the piano. It's a simple melody. My dad really enjoyed it. He named it "Sliding Beside Me on the Wave" after one of our experiences on the river. And for me, it embodies this moment of sharing and what he always tried to bring out of everyone else, to push those limits. So here's "Sliding Beside Me on the Wave." want to say one last thing to my dad. Dad, thank you for always believing in me, and for always pushing me to be my best and realize my dreams. I promise to always carry the lessons you taught me with me, and to introduce you to everybody I meet, because you would say, you never met a stranger. Havestas greatest, bestest deus everest, thaddeus huius everest haddest, inus thos roest. Until our next adventure, I love you, Dad.
So, everybody talking about how patient Patty is has obviously never used her toaster as a musical instrument at 2 in the morning. Evidently, she gets upset about that. I think I did break it. As soon as he gets my guitar turned on here, he's working on it. Now you got it. So, there's few words to describe a man like John Fagen. When I think about John, I think about a guy that would see the orneriest kid in the school, and he wouldn't say, that kid has no future. He'd say, that kid's a project. And he would both literally and figuratively grab him by the collar, and he had a way to knock him down and then build him up to so much more than he ever realized. That was John Fagen. Tally asked me to play this song, and then I told her the rest of the story. She said, will you play The River? And about 30 years ago, right over here at Fruitland High School, we were in a health class, and one of the assignments was to bring in a song that meant something to you and play it for the class and tell them what it means to you. Oddly enough, it was the same song. You know a dream is like a river, ever changing as it flows, and the dreamer's just a vessel that must follow where it goes, trying to learn from what's behind you, and never knowing what's in store, makes each day a constant battle just to stay between the shores. And I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry, like a bird upon the wind. You know these waters are my sky. I'll never reach my destination if I never try. So I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry. Too many times we stand aside and let the water slip away to what we put off till tomorrow has now become today. So don't you sit upon the shorelines and say you're satisfied. Choose to chance the rapids and dare to dance that tide.
never reach my destination if I never try. So I will sail my vessel till that river runs dry. And I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry. Like a bird upon the wind, you know these waters are my sky. I'll never reach my destination if I never try. So I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry.
Good afternoon. I'm John Fagen. Johnny was my coach, a best friend, a brother, and a mentor. It is a privilege to share this opportunity to spend a few moments with you. It's going to be tough. And share the role he played in my life, how he positively impacted the entire community, and the legacy he leaves behind. I am not sure where I'd be today had it not been for Johnny, and for that I will be forever grateful and in his debt. A lot like what other people talked about, I believe one is not truly lived unless you spend a weekend on the road with Johnny. In his alchemy of unquenchable curiosity, drive, and ability to overcome fear, he was a motive force of life-changing experiences for those around him. A weekend with him can be rather emotional, running the spectrum of adrenaline, anxiety, and self-evaluation of your own decision-making. Yet always in it is a sense of astonishment on what you just accomplished. With Johnny, you faced and overcame real danger. And in return, you learned something about the world and about yourself. But I have to be honest with you. There were a few times after hanging out with him that I was just glad I made it home alive. Johnny can be like a really bad hangover. You swear you will never drink again. Or maybe you swear you will not go climbing with him again. And yet, the very next weekend, there you are, dangling from the side of a rock, attached to Johnny, in some precarious position that you have no business being in. You're like, how do I get myself back into this situation? Yet, those are my fondest memories of him. And it's what made Johnny, Johnny. For a good portion of my youth and adulthood, wrestling was a central part of who I was as a person, and it resulted in opportunities, amazing opportunities, that would not have otherwise existed. As Johnny pushed my limits on the mat, I learned the difference between pain and injury, and that the mind will usually quit before the body. When I found myself cutting weight to meet a desired weight class, my mind would go to some pretty tough places. Johnny would call this experience the Odyssey because of what a person has to endure physically and mentally while still maintaining one's sight set on success and achievement. We would discuss the parallels of life and wrestling, meaning in life, we sometimes experience enduring challenges and sacrifices for those sweet, sometimes rare moments of reward. Later on, when I faced some of my most challenging moments, be it personally or in my profession as a naval officer, to include my time serving as the commanding officer of a nuclear-powered submarine, I felt back on what I learned from Johnny and what I learned from the greatest sport in the world. This is why the Johnnies of the world, the coaches, and the mentors are so important. They teach the next generation to set aspirational goals, to dig deep, work hard, and push through adversity. My experience with Johnny as my coach and mentor is a personal story, but I'm one of hundreds, if not thousands, of other students who he positively influenced. And today, the current leaders of the Fruitland Wrestling program, also Johnny trained and mentoring future generations on how to be successful and continuing the legacy of excellence started over 3 decades ago. The only thing that Johnny valued more than great adventures was having Patty and his family by his side to share those moments with. You guys were his cornerstone of happiness, meaning, fulfillment, and purpose. Johnny often spoke about how he met Patty, how blessed he was. Now, he knew that she was the girl that he was going to marry. Patty, you and Johnny were amazing together. And what a beautiful family and legacy you've created. Callie, Nick, Jonathan. Among you are a nurse, a multiple-time national football champion, multiple state wrestling championships, Naval Academy graduate, a Navy pilot, someone who wrestles at the most elite level of competition, and a published author. Coda, your grandfather's so proud of you. He loved you guys dearly. Johnny, words fail me in communicating my deep appreciation for what you mean to me. You are the single most influential person in my life. With utmost gratitude, I thank you for everything you did for myself and countless others. You're the toughest person I've ever met. And you also have the biggest heart. From whatever mountain you are on now, looking down on us, it has been a privilege and an honor. And I love you, my brother.
Good afternoon. It's impossible to talk about Johnny in 5 minutes, so I'm going to try to give it my best shot. Brainstorming some words may help to start this off with if you're unfamiliar with John, which most of you aren't, but fiery ball of excitement, positivity, ADD, hyperactive, superhuman amounts of Energizer Bunny energy on steroids. Johnny Earthquake, intensity, all in on everything, relationship builder, inspirational to not only his students and athletes and friends, but his children. But to anyone that has spent time with Johnny G. Fagen. Ultra talented, eclectic, hybridized seeker of freedom, creativity, and fun in a stick of outlaw dynamite. I'm lucky enough to call Johnny my brother and have spent immense amounts of times in the mountains climbing, the rivers rafting, and boating, on the wrestling mats, in the trees with chainsaws doing Fagen things, or even tag teaming one of his administrators to give him a swirly in a toilet at Jackpot. I think the first time I saw Johnny was right here in 1999, my first year in Idaho. And after East Penn, Fruitland had, Johnny did a backflip. It was the first time I watched Paget wrestle too. And Danny and I thought that was pretty cool. Never seen that in 47 years of wrestling. Pretty excitable guy. Soon afterwards, Mel introduced us, and we both had strong desires to, one, switch our skill sets for each other. He wanted to learn to paddle, and I wanted to learn climbing. And two, explore the world while having a ton of fun. So he introduced me to him, his world, and him to my world, and his family became mine. I was lucky enough to watch Tally, Nick, and Jonathan grow up, who were Johnny's pride and joy, and I probably upset Patty more than any other man besides Johnny, due to our many late night climbing sessions on school nights, or weekend mishaps where we were a day late coming off the river or the mountain. Through Johnny, I was also lucky enough to meet my wife, Ann, and our future daughters. So many precious gifts he gave. We had many great adventures with Greg and John, Mel, Mike, me and Dean, Andy, JB and the Garden Valley crew, Brent and Cody, and so many others, including a huge array of former students and/or wrestlers that jumped into climbing or paddling as adults. He was the ultimate educator and motivator, and it never turned off, even when showing a newbie ice climbing techniques or how to roll a kayak. And his enthusiasm was definitely contagious. I think he loved people and interacting with anybody almost as much as chasing rivers. And almost anywhere we go, he knows someone. We had a wrestling tournament in Hawaii once, and I believe he knew half the crowd there. You don't have to be around Johnny very long before you realize he would do anything for anyone. He knew. He knew no strangers. Once my old Suburban broke down in beautiful Boardman, Oregon, a 3-hour drive from here. I called Johnny that evening. The next morning, he had Larry's flatbed there, and got the rig home, drop of a dime. Once I wanted to enter Ironman, it was super expensive, and he helped me train, and Romeo's sponsored me for the entry fee, drop of a dime. He really lived to serve others. Even if it was helping a tired out 6-foot sturgeon swim back to the depths of Snake River. Even if it meant secretly placing beer in my backpack before we topped out on Mount Rainier. When we got to the top, he asked, "Don't you think this would be a great time to have a beer?" And of course I said yes, so he pulled it out of my backpack. Johnny. One of the many talents he had was making people feel better about themselves and life after talking to him even briefly. He had an ability to get folks motivated and excited about things, anything in that moment, and was always so positive to even strangers. Remember, Johnny knew no strangers. When we coached together at New Plymouth, I found out I didn't know much about wrestling, at least compared to Johnny. Danny, Justin, Jared, Daryl, Josh, Matt, and I had so much fun with his positive outlook and attitude on life. His impact on our kids was immeasurable, and he would literally do anything to help them reach their goals. I know he's like this coaching pole vault as well. Johnny was larger in life, and he tried to squeeze every drop out of it. He was one of the most impactful humans I've ever known, and he lived the life of 10 men and tried to share his love for life and people with everyone. He left this world a better place and will leave so many folks with special memories. He will be missed but not forgotten. Lastly, since Nick became a Navy pilot, off and on Johnny started talking about maybe becoming a pilot. Another way for him to find freedom, creativity, and fun that he was always seeking. I'm sure he's flying now, no license required.
Hi, everyone. I am John's smartest, funniest, best-looking, most richest, enthusiastic sister that he ever had. Because I'm the only one. What was it like growing up with John? Well, it was, for me, like growing up with 4 Johns, because I had 4 brothers. My name is Susie. Big breath. Hold it in. Let it go. Hold it in. When John was born, our older brothers were 18, 16, and 15 years old. You could say John and I were maybe afterthoughts. I'm not sure. Oops. I know Johnny was an oops because my mother at her 50th wedding anniversary kind of spilled the beans to a cousin of hers and said Johnny was a result of her delivering lunch to Dad in the cinder pits. TMI, okay? My older brothers, Nick, Harry, and Donnie, worked hard and played just as hard. My dad had an excavating business. They were hauling cinders, driving to Redding, California from Bend, Oregon when they were 15 and 14 years old. Who needs a license, right? They worked hard just like their father. They worked hard just like their mother. And I think that's where Johnny learned his work ethic. My dad would come home from running his excavation business during the day, go to sleep for 4 hours, eat the dinner I made for him, and he never got up to go to the bathroom. That was one good thing. It means he digested my dinner. And then he'd get up and go to work at the mill all night on a graveyard shift. And he'd come home from that and he'd go to the cinder pits. My brothers did the same thing. My mother did the same thing, only she didn't go to cinder pits. She went to the nicest restaurant in Bend, Pine Tavern, and worked as a dishwasher all night. And I got the privilege of taking care of Johnny. And I was 10 years old. I didn't know how to take care of myself. But John grew up knowing hard work and saying, no play makes people tired. And that was very true for him. Johnny was never too tired to play. And that was the beginning of his dash. That 1959-2026. That small dash when John began to discover himself, his attributes, his challenges, and his victories. And we've already heard of quite a few of those victories. I think the biggest victory he had was convincing Patty to marry him. Fast forward to now, and we stand here asking ourselves why he passed away when he had so much to look forward to and live for. Only God has that answer. But one thing I know is that his dash is a huge one, and it's very thick. All of us here are a part of his dash. We are that dash. We fit right in from his beginning to his end. He showed us how to make a difference in the world. He never held any elective office, was never on a board of anything, kind of receiving ends of some boards maybe. But he was just himself all the time. And look at what he accomplished by just being himself. Look at the person next to you. That's part of John. The person behind you. And I'm looking at a lot of Johnny's right now. When Johnny was growing up, like I said, all his siblings were older than him. Excuse me. He didn't have a lot of close buddies, except his dog, of course. He was only 3 years old when his older siblings, Nick, Harry, and Donnie, started having children of their own. That's when Johnny got some of his best buddies of his life, Stacy, Casey, Travis, and along with his older brother from Nick, excuse me. Oh, Jesus, I thought this would be easier. Wade and Jamie were Harry's two boys. Brother Donnie didn't have any boys, and that's probably there's a good reason for that. Johnny and his nephews formed a group called the Regulators. How do you regulate somebody who can't regulate himself? I always thought that was an oxymoron. This is probably where he got his leadership skills, though, trying to keep those kids in line, along with not being in line himself. He had very many mentors. One was a wrestling coach that in the 7th or 8th grade introduced him to wrestling, and that's where it all started. And for those of you who wrestled from him, I don't remember the man's name, so you can't go get back at him, okay? Nick, oldest brother Nick, because he had the 3 boys, he went and bought motorcycles one day for his kids and Johnny, and he taught him how to work on them. He didn't tell him how to ride them. He taught him how to work on them. And then he took him out to the track, and he said, "Now go win." That was the instructions he got on how to ride a motorcycle. And you know what? They did. They didn't have any YouTube to tell him all the ins and outs of racing motocross. They just went out there and did it. And that's how John learned too. He just went out and did it. If there was something he wanted to do or learn, he just went and did it. All these experiences helped form John into the crazy person we know him as, aptly named Johnny Earthquake. The reason I'm telling you all this is that we all have the possibility of being a Johnny Earthquake. Someone whose upbringing was normal yet not normal. With schoolwork, he had his difficulties with schoolwork, being on time, not doing his chores, just like every one of us did. So why did John become the legend, and what made him the man that so many of us here pay tribute to? Anybody got an answer for me? He was just a regular guy, but he had a dream. He was not going to be like his dad and work all the time and be too tired to play. Play was the first thing on his mind every day, the moment he woke up. But he figured out how to make things he had to do, such as a job, raising children, cleaning house, being responsible, showing up on time. He learned how to do that and turn it into play. I think that's something that we all miss a lot of times, because we look at it from the opposite end of the stick. I think the best thing we could do to honor his memory is to become more like him. We talk about how inspirational and everything he was, but you know what? He grew up just like all of us. And we all have the abilities in us. Maybe not to be so legendary. Maybe our morals will stop us from being quite so notable. But we all have that in us. He knew how to treat people, how to work hard, how to complete his duties as assigned. He learned to do them the bestest and the fastest so he could go play more. Make the hard things that you have to do somehow playful. Then they're not that hard. Love and respect everybody you meet. Put all the derogatory thoughts that you might be in your mind when you meet somebody, Put them aside. The way they walk, the color of their teeth, their language, their dress. Look beyond that and look into their heart. Because that's what Johnny did. Because in all of us, there is good. And a playful spirit that's just asking us, can I come play with you? And we need to let them. We can be maybe not as great. I'm sure there will not be a gymnasium full of people for my sending off. But there will be people there that I showed love to. There will be people there I helped out. And there, you will have the same thing, because we are all capable of being little Johnny Earthquakes. One of his great nephews said about John, he said, John did things for others. He made his heart help, God bless me. He made his heart happy. He never sought validation. He gave validation. And we can all do that. And many of us already do it. Maybe we can do it a little more. Just in his name, so that spirit never, ever dies. We talk about how hard it is not to have him around us anymore. And I know many people have heard me say this before, but when my mom passed, she was the rock of our family. And she died at 69, which was young, and she died from cancer, and it was difficult for every one of us. And I asked my dad, how do you prepare for this? Because I myself was a big basket case. And he goes, well, you just brace yourself. Against what? What do you brace yourself against? You don't walk around with a podium, you know? And my dad was born in a log cabin in nowhere, Minnesota. His parents didn't speak English. He had 9 siblings, and they all started working young to survive. And so I was really surprised at the profoundness of what he said to me next, because it was unlike many of the other words that I heard him say a lot of times. And I'm not going to say the word, but that's what he'd do. He said, if God would have wanted me, he would have taken me. But he evidently wants me to go on living, and that's what I'll do. And that's what we all have to do, is go on living. Go on living in the spirit of John G. Fagen. We might not be as adventurous. I know some of us are smarter. I know some of us have better sense about some things. But I know that we all have a little bit of John Fagen earthquake in us. So let's go be an earthquake and keep this world shaken. Fagen strong!
Yeah, they don't make anything for the average guy. They're always down here somewhere. Well, I'm probably like you. I would rather be anywhere else doing anything else today other than what we're doing. But we're here, and I'll do my best to tell you my stories, I guess, of John Fagen. John Fagen was the most amazing guy I ever met. He could do just about anything. But one of the things that I always admired about John is that he was always a family man, and he loved his family. He loved his wife and his daughter and his sons and all the rest of his family. And so I'm going to start out with a story about Craig Fournier was trimming some trees at my dad's house, and he lived right next to us. And so I think it was me probably that forgot to decide who was going to haul the brush away. And I was doing something more important like fishing or whatever, something like that day. And as luck would have it, John showed up. Excuse me. John showed up, and he was talking to my wife, Terry, and he said, "What are you doing?" She said, "Well, I'm hauling this brush away." "Well, how come Mel's not doing that?" "Well, he's doing something else." So John helped. I think he came over just to talk to Craig Fournier, but he said, "Well, let me do that for you." So he starts dragging brush, and he realizes there's going to be too much for him to get it done in a reasonable amount of time. So he went and got his two sons, and they might not remember it because they were only about that tall probably at that time, but helped him drag all the brush away. He wasn't asked to do that, and he just did it. That was John. If you saw, I had a guy that taught ag here, Dwayne Testolita, and he always said there are people who can do work, but there's not a lot of people who can see work. John could see work, and he would do something about it when he found it. And so he helped us out that day. That was the John that would do anything for you. Didn't matter, he would do it. I also got to work with John, and I saw a different John Fagen. And I've got a couple of stories that I'd like to end on. So we had a new football coach. Bruce Schley came to be our football coach, and we are in an office just right back here. There are three of us in there. There's myself, John Fagen, and Bruce Schley. So we're about a week into the school year, and Bruce looked at me and he said, "I think I've got everybody kind of figured out here, but I haven't got John Fagen figured out." I said, "That's all right, nobody does." So he said, well, tell me about him. And I go, "No, let me just show you." So I went over and he was out in the classroom, and the class had just started, and I knew he'd be back in because he always forgot his keys. So I grabbed a big garbage can and I dumped it on his desk and just kind of scattered it all around. Pop cans, banana peels, a lot of paper. And Bruce is looking at me and he's saying, "What'd you do that for?" And I go, just wait, you'll have an answer. Sure enough, here comes John. He's looking for his keys. One track, straight ahead. Hey, you guys, have you seen my keys? He goes to his desk, and he just starts going through all this stuff. Doesn't realize it's garbage. He's just going through it. And he grabs it, finally, oh, here they are, and out the door he went. Bruce looked at me and said, "You gotta be kidding me." He didn't know he had dumped the garbage on his desk. No, that's details. That's just details. John had an issue. He was going to get he wanted his keys, is all he wanted. If I could do one more, a bunch of us went on a raft trip down Hills Canyon. And my uncle, who was probably about 70, about where I'm at that time. And so we took John's Suburban. And we had it full of guys going on this trip. We get to just a little ways out of Cambridge, and we pull over just kind of I don't know, just get out and stretch our legs. And the people in the Suburban they said, hey, can you not let John drive? Why? Well, because he's always looking back. And he's talking to us, and he's not watching the road. Well, yeah. So I said, I'll see what I can do. So I'll talk to him. So I said, John, you're not going to drive anymore. Well, what do you mean? My car. Yeah, but we're not going to let you drive. So my uncle is a truck driver. He used to be a truck driver. We're going to let him drive. Is that all right with you? And he just kind of, well, okay, I guess. So we get down to the put-in, and we have our raft trip. And now we got to come out of Pittsburgh Landing. And I don't know if you've ever been to Pittsburgh Landing, but it's a pretty windy road. And John's not driving. John can't drive. So my uncle's driving, I'm in the front seat, and John goes out the side window, and he is on top of the Suburban. He's surfing up there. So I tell my uncle, I said, Wally, don't take the corners too fast, don't stop too fast, be careful, because John's on top of the Suburban. He said, what's he doing up there? Nobody knows. He's John. No, he can't be up there. I said, look at the shadow. And you could see him on top. And he was surfing the Suburban. So everybody got home safe. Nobody got killed. It was a good trip. But John Fagen loved to have fun. And he always had fun. And if you were with him, you had fun too. But he was always willing to help you if you needed something. And we'll miss him. We'll all miss him. And I'm not sure how to end this because I don't want to, but I'll miss John. I hope that you remember John's family and remember them, and keep them in your heart, because it's going to be a tough deal getting over, the idea of not having him around. So remember them. Take care of them. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Casey Fagen. I'm Nick Fagen's son, Johnny's nephew. Thank you. I'm going to try to shove my 61 years into 5 minutes. It started out around 9, and I had to cut a lot of stories because, there's a lot of stories. I believe there were 2 Uncle Johnnies, yin and yang, good, a bad, evil, God. But I break it down into before Patty and after Patty. For us, my siblings, cousins, Uncle Johnny was larger than life. But he wasn't just an uncle. We're so close in age. 5 years older than me, 3.5 years older than my brother. He felt more like a brother than anything else. He was our buddy. We grew up that way. He had a wild streak, and I'm not sure I would have let my kids do half the stuff with him that my mom let us do. Come on. For example, one day we're heading out to the Levee Landing Cliffs out on the Snake River. Piled in the back of his Toyota pickup. There were 6 of us there, a couple in the front seat. 50 miles an hour down the road, all of a sudden, right turn down a dirt road on a farm field. We were hanging on for dear life, man. No warning, no blinkers, no safety nets. Just hanging on for dear life. When we were little, we built ramps in my mom's garden to launch our motorcycles off them, marking who flew the furthest, because everything with my uncle was a competition. I don't care what it was. And that wasn't enough. So us 3 boys would lay down at the end of the ramp, and he would fly off there on a motorcycle doing a cross-up. And we were taking pictures of him. Somewhere we've got those pictures. Just can't find them. Johnny was full of energy. We did everything together like you heard. Ride bikes, wrestle, motocross, football, kick the can, skiing, scuba diving, mountain climbing. I made it on Rainier with Uncle Johnny. I wish you'd have put a beer in my backpack. That would have been nice. At least that's how it felt to us. Everything was always good. We followed around like little ducklings. If Johnny did it, then it must be good for us to do too. Johnny was a teacher, as we've heard and we've seen from all the posters up here and stuff. You guys, most of y'all here that went to Fruitland and stuff, you benefited from us. You didn't know that. We were his first test subjects. His experiments. His techniques were a little rough in the beginning. Like the time he taught my younger brother Travis to race up a railroad dike on a motorcycle. It was pretty steep. He gets halfway up. Sorry, I forgot a little part there. Johnny had some encouragement for him to get his ass up that dike. It had a lot of explicitives in it, but he was motivating Travis. He made it halfway up, fell over on the wrong side, tumbled down the hill, ended up in a bunch of barbed wire, and was all cut and scraped and stuff, bruised, but alive. He was like 10 years old. He told my little sister Monique that he wished she was a boy. Seems odd, right? She felt like she'd been crowned the queen of the world. You know, odd that he thought you had to be a boy to be fun, but that's kind of the way he was. But I guess she felt proud because the coolest people she knew were her big brothers. I kind of threw that in, that wasn't part of her story. We would climb Mount Broken Top, leaving at midnight. Drive as far as we could get up there. A lot of times the snow wouldn't allow us up too far. We'd hike up into the crater of Broken Top, an old volcano. No lights, no food, no water, no first aid, no ropes, no cell phones, and no one knew where we were at. In tennis shoes, not hiking boots and all this fancy stuff we got now. Often we did this after being at the bars all night. The only thing that we brought with us was beer. Sometimes we'd have, the old plastic wrappers we'd put in our belt, and we'd carry in 4 or 5 beers with us. That's just what we did. Many of us expected this day actually to come much sooner, given his antics, right? You've heard about him. I always figured the devil didn't want him because he didn't want to change hell. And God knew Johnny needed to change before being allowed into heaven. At John and Patty's wedding, I hugged Patty. I told her, good luck. He's your problem now. I don't think she liked that very much. I think she understands now. But then came life after Patty. Still himself, but with a few added seat belts and safety ropes. Johnny had a special need to help others. I'm going to do something here for the audience. Like you've heard him reaching out and picking up the person who was sitting by themselves or needed that extra help. If you feel Johnny really grabbed you by the collar, pulled you around and showed you the way, and really went out of his way, above and beyond anybody else, if you feel he did that, raise your hand. Look at this. Look around the room, guys.
Perfect.
That's a lot of people. That's just amazing how he was.
Perfect.
He had a gift for helping people reach their potential, not by holding their hand, but by giving them a chance to struggle, to fail, and to succeed. Wrestling, kayaking, mountaineering, whatever the venture was, he used it to teach, and he got good at it. My uncle found a way to turn play into life lessons. There's so much I had to cut out of this stuff, just to get it down to 5 minutes, but I'm trying. But I think his greatest teaching ability was being a parent. It was just amazing to watch him teach his children, and look at everything, every strength you had, and stretch that, and use that, and to make you guys who you are today. He learned from his own upbringing and did things differently. He did not want his kids raised the way he was. He did it with freedom, fun, but with structure. It wasn't enough for him to survive. He needed to live. And that's what he taught us and what he passed on to us. To live with no regrets. To slide into the 6-foot hole with nothing left. The night Johnny died, I was reading through all of the Facebook posts. I think there was about 55 of them. He touched everyone in this room in a good way. He made us all feel special, like he did my little sister. Because of Patty's love, her patience, her angelic nature, Johnny changed. Slowly, yes, but enough to open the pearly gates, and now he's resting in heaven. After hearing the stories last night around the keg, we all know Johnny didn't change much. God, I wish you luck. And he's your problem now. God bless you, Uncle Johnny.
I'm gonna do a wide shot. Okay, to Lexi.
First of all, let's drive the sound man crazy. And I thought I was special. I thought Johnny treated me. No. I do like Casey. Can you go on Facebook? Everyone was special. We're driving here from Burns, from Ben, and stop at a coffee shop. I'm the weak one of all the nephews. Kind of emotional. And we're just talking, my wife and my oldest daughter, and my oldest daughter says, God, Dad, you know, it's so strange knowing somebody since you're 15 years old and she's 38. And her friend was having a baby and going through all these life changes with somebody from 15 to 38. So that's like 23 years. And I'm 62. And all those first memories that you have that are just like a flash when you're a baby, you know, the very, very first memories you have. Most of those were Uncle John. I'm a DJ, so I'm really good in front of people too. But yeah, he was all of those memories. And I grew up. And he became my hero. And when we went through some pretty hard times with my family, he was there. He came back to Kansas, helped pack us up and move. And I was in high school. It was a pretty hard time for me. Biggest dweeb you ever saw. Still am. And went through 2 years of hell in high school, which kind of everybody does, but mine was worse. But I always had Johnny there to look forward to and look up to. And you know, your parents, how did I write anything down? Your parents raise you, and in my case, my family raised us, and my brother, my cousins raised us, my grandmas, grandpas, uncles, all raised us, and we felt love, and it's a miracle we made it through it. But then there's somebody that comes along in your life that doesn't just raise you. It's not the foundation. It's like a cake. Your parents make you the cake, but somebody's going to add the frosting. And for me, that was my Uncle John. And I would look at him and just say, that's who I want to be. I'm going to be just like him. And I was up at his house in Kennewick on 4th Street, walked through the living room, Formula One Classic is on, Formula One Long Beach Classic is on TV, and I walk in front of Johnny and, wow, that's what I want to be. I want to be a Formula One driver. He goes, really? I go, yeah. He goes, well, you know, this is when he was just getting done with CBC. I was headed into my senior year of high school. And he says, I gotta hurry up. He says, well, you know, I've got a full ride scholarship for wrestling at Long Beach, ASU, Oklahoma, Colorado. And I turned and I looked at him and I said, John, we gotta take my little pickup and you gotta go to every one of those colleges. This is before internet. This is before cell phones. You gotta visit every one of those colleges. My mom, who went to school, a lot of school, she would want you to go to those colleges and see the coaches and visit them. Well, how are we going to do that? With your little pickup? Yeah, right. 2 weeks go by, I'm working at Safeway, get a phone call, online phone call. Were you serious about that? Yeah, I was serious. When can you be ready? Well, I'll call in sick tomorrow. This is my hero. Yeah, he came down for sure. We loaded up my little pickup with the canopy. We took off on, for me, my iconic trip. Some people say spending a weekend with Johnny, spending a couple weeks with Johnny. This is a full-blown month with 19-year-old Johnny, and I was 16. And my parents, my dad, everybody, bye. This is child rearing? Okay. Take off to Southern California, and we're just looking for a sign on the freeway that says LA. Then we know we're Southern California. Anyway, Johnny was always having crazy instances. As you know, I mean, I could ditto everything everybody said is so true, and it's over and over again. But Johnny was like Arnold Schwarzenegger, John Travolta, and Tom Cruise all rolled up into one. We were sitting at a railroad crossing in Chico, California, kind of known for partying college towns. Me, my Uncle John, and my Uncle Donnie in a truck. And this is the kind of guy he was. A girl comes running up to the side of the truck, jumps on the running board and says, "Here's my phone number. You're the most gorgeous guy I've ever seen." Sure enough, he meets that girl that night. I spent the night on the couch. We had a great time. Unbelievable. Anyway, we go on this trip, and for me, oh yeah, so the first stop was Chico, California. We run up to her door, knock on her door, and she comes to the door and says, "Oh my God, John, you're back, blah, blah, blah." And this was like, I don't know, a year later. And he's like, "Yeah." And then she goes, "Just a minute." And John looks at me and I look at him. She's not as cute as she used to be. Never saw her again. But the whole trip is full of iconic stories. The main thing is I got to watch John Fagen at the age of 19, and I got to live with him, his actions, his personality, his just everything for a month. And when I got done with that trip, and I got home, we ended up having like one magical night before John took off to Colorado, where he ended up going. God, there's so many stories. And this one night, I don't know if he like let me do it, but for one night, I was the cool guy. And Johnny was kind of this introvert guy. Mind-blowing. And I remember getting home that night and just saying to myself, oh yeah, that 2 years of hell, I was the shyest wallflower at high school. And I said, this is it, I'm changing tonight. I've taken 2 years of drama in high school. I know how to act. I'm gonna act like Johnny for the rest of my life. That's it. And people today that know me think I'm kind of outward going like Johnny too. And can't believe it being so shy. But the point is, you know, like all the rest of you, he was so amazing. I'm surprised they didn't do, you know, a commercial about Johnny. The world's most amazing man, John Fagen, coasts faster than most people accelerate. And Johnny told me one time, we would philosophize and go on, you know, talk big words and deep thoughts and all that stuff. And he tells me one time, he says, wise man, or Indian native, or Asian, I don't know, wise man told me once, see this glass of water? Put your finger in it. Now remove your finger. That's the difference you make in this world. It's a big, big world out there. It's hard to make a difference. Well, Johnny was that most amazing man in the world to me. John Fagen, the world's most amazing man. He could dent water. Johnny, you left a dent in my glass of water, life water, and I'll always be grateful for it. I love you, buddy. this is where you usually say thanks for coming, but I think I'll say thanks for staying. I'm Perry, Patty's brother, and one of the things that I admired about John, like everybody else, was his fearlessness. He was not afraid to talk to anybody, and he would give you every opportunity to be his friend. All you gotta do is look around here to know that he did a great job of that. You know, there's many reasons that I love John Fagen. One of those is that he helped me out with my family. You see, my family thought I was the one that was probably gonna need a little help. That they were a little concerned about me. Well, is this on? Along came John, and their focus shifted. We're a little concerned about this guy. We think he might need a little help, especially if he's going to marry our daughter. But my mom, she grew to love John. Not that they didn't have their moments, but she knew John's heart. She knew how good it was, and she knew how much that he loved my sister. And my dad, he always loved Fagen. And I don't think there's anything that either one of those two wouldn't have done for each other. And my dad, he really liked John's family. He enjoyed being around them. And that was even after he told my uncle, his brother, who lived in Bend, yeah, Patty's gonna marry this Fagen guy. And my uncle's response was, well, surely not that Fagen. Well, it was. And it's been a great ride ever since. The last story is about my dad's 1938 Plymouth pickup. We passed it down to my son, and we decided that we needed to get it fixed up, so I took it to a guy. Took it all apart, couldn't get it back together. So I called John, told him my dilemma, and he goes, let me call Harry. So he calls me back a little while later, and he goes, Harry says he'll do it. I said, great, load it up, take it to bed. And so then it was a few months later, John calls me back and says, hey, I'm gonna go up and help Harry finish that truck. You wanna go with me? I just recently retired, so I'm like, sure, I'll go. Yeah, sounds like fun. I said, but John, I got to warn you, I said, I'm not a mechanic. I know nothing. He goes, don't worry. He goes, Harry knows everything. We just got to do what he tells us. So I'm like, all right, sounds all right. So this next part here, like I'm totally making up, but I could envision it happening where Harry says to John, after a couple of days of this, so why the hell did you bring him? And John was like, well, it is his dad's truck. He is my brother-in-law. Thought I should ask him, but I didn't think he'd come. But what I do have to say about that trip, honestly, that was one of my favorite trips. And Harry and Bev and Neil, they could not have been more gracious. We had a great time working on that truck. And that is a week that I will always cherish, that I got to be with John and part of his family. And I also heard more than once how John would not be where he was without Patty. And I know that Patty would say the same thing about John. And I'm going to finish with a little quote that I did find that I thought was fitting for John. And it says, it's not how long you live, but how you live. Make an impact. And all you got to do is look
around here, you know, be impactful people.
Yeah, get a shot of it.
I'd just like to start out by saying what an incredible honor it is to be here.
Okay, we're on.
How proud I am to be able to call Fagen one of my best friends. And like so many other people, it's kind of hard to put into words the impact that he's made on my life. And anybody that knows me at all knows that, you know, public speaking is definitely something I don't want to do. And being in front of a crowd like this makes me really uncomfortable and freaking terrified, actually. But, you know, maybe that's kind of why I love being around Fagen so much. He really, you know, didn't have a problem doing all the talking most of the time. But I met Fagen when I was a pretty young teenager, and he was in his late 30s, and he was just a freak of nature back then, like he was always, but and our friendship started immediately with experiences that would make most people feel uncomfortable and terrified. Whether it was a late night climbing trip where he somehow talked me into lead climbing for the first time, or my first ever wrestling match at the Pacific Open, which, come to find out, wasn't exactly a tournament for a beginner. Or an ice climbing trip where he managed to save me and my brother's life at the same time, and somehow catching it all on that old school video camera that they had. Or paddling a Class 4 rapid for the first time in that classic read it and run it style that Fagen kind of lived by. Fagen had a way of putting me right at the edge of what I thought I could handle and then pushing me just a little bit further. And that's something I will always appreciate about Fagen. It's his ability to see the best in people and his willingness to push them through the terrifying and uncomfortable moments. He didn't just encourage growth, but he demanded it. And if he were here right now, seeing me completely out of my comfort zone, he would probably say something like, just read it and run it, buddy. And like 100 times before, he'd find a way to help me get through it. Fagen wasn't just an adventurer, he was a teacher, a mentor, and an incredible wrestling coach. He brought intensity, honesty, and a crazy energy into the wrestling room with him every day. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He told you what you needed to hear and not what you wanted to hear. And because of that, I think he made his athletes better on the mat and in life. He had a way of putting 100% into everything he did. Whether it was coaching, climbing, or kayaking, you always knew you were getting the real Fagen. There was no pretending, no holding back, just passion, drive, and a deep belief in the people around him. And that's what I'll miss the most. It's not all the adventures and all the stories, but it's the way that he made you feel. Like you were capable of more. Like you should push harder and like you shouldn't back down just because something is uncomfortable and terrifying. Because to Fagen, I think that's what life is really all about. Those uncomfortable and terrifying moments. And all the risks and all the times he had to just take a deep breath and go for it. I'm incredibly grateful for the 25 years I got to spend with him, and for every lesson and every time he refused to let me settle for something less than I was capable of. And I think the best way any of us can honor him is to carry that forward. To take that climb we're unsure of, to run that rapid that scares us, to push ourselves and others to be better. And when we find ourselves hesitating, standing at the edge of something difficult, we can all hear Fagen say, read it and run it. Because after all, what's the worst that'll happen? You'll have to swim a rapid and then drink a booty beer. As life goes on, I hope we can all have the courage to just do what Fagen would do. I'm going to miss you, Fagen, and I'll carry you with me every step of the way. I love you, buddy.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm Steve Deanna. We've just heard a lot of really great stories about John Fagen, and thank you for those. I have a bunch of them myself. Some of them are inspirational, some of them are funny, a couple of them are heartbreaking, and I'm not going to share any of them because I promised to be fast. For those of you with programs, you'll notice that I'm the last speaker, listed speaker, and besides from the fact that I promised to be quick, there's a reason for that. The reason is my wife Susan and I were John Fagen's best friends. Yeah. I know a lot of you out there thinking, hey, I was his best friend. And that's true too. John had a huge heart, and he was always ready to have fun and help you do something or teach you something, and he made you feel like you were his best friend, and he was your best friend too. It was magic. So here we all are today, John Fagen's best friends, gathered here to say goodbye. It's kind of a tough time. I heard something recently that kind of resonated with me a little bit. It was that let the memory of John Fagen be a blessing in your life. So I'm trying to get that to work for me. I hope it'll work for you too. But there's something else that's true too, and I'm sure I speak for all of us here by saying we're going to miss him. On writer mode, I've been told to announce to everyone that there are hot dogs getting cooked outside. There's a little bit left in this program, but that's all I got. Thank you for listening.
Till the land
little technical difficulties, we're getting it taken care of.
Okay, we're making some adjustments. Oh. What was that? Read it and run it? I'm Kathy O'Driscoll, John's best friend from college. I like to believe that our purpose here on earth is to learn to love. And I think this room full of people is proof that John mastered the lesson. John's favorite song was I Can Only Imagine, and I'm singing it because I love him. I can only imagine what it will be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what I will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or will all be still? Will I stand in your presence or fall down on my knees? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I can only imagine what that day comes and I find myself standing in the sun. I can only imagine what I will do was worship you, forever you. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart see? Will I dance with you, Jesus, or stand and be still? Will I stand here before you, or on my knees will I fall? Will I sing I can only imagine what I will do is forever, forever worship you. I can only imagine.
Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have an open mic, but there's going to be limited time. We've only got 30 minutes. Is that not right? Are we going to do it again? Beautiful. Okay, we're going to go ahead with the slideshow.
Set an open course for the virgin sea, 'cause I've got to be free, free to face a life that's ahead of me. On board, I'm the captain, so climb aboard. We'll search for tomorrow on every shore, and I'll try, oh Lord, I'll try to carry on. Reflections in the waves spark my memory. Some happy, some sad. I think of childhood friends and the dreams we had. We lived happily forever, so the story goes. But somehow we
this is awesome. Richard Man says it's the end of time. Mississippi River, she's a going dry. Interest is up and the stock market's down. Gonna get mugged if you go downtown. Dakota High.
Mama, let that boy play some rock and roll. Jazz is much too crazy. He can play it when he's old. He's too young for the blues. He's still inside his first pair of shoes. He's just a baby. Give that boy some freedom. Let him move around. Don't get in his way. You'll only bring him down. Mama, won't you let him play some rock and roll. Yeah. Let him play some rock and roll. Let him play some rock and roll. Let him play some rock and roll. Yeah. Just take those old records off the shelf. I sit and listen to them by myself. Today's music ain't got the same soul. I like that old time of rock and roll. Don't try to take me to a disco. You'll never even get me out on the floor. In 10 minutes I'll be late for the door. I like that old time of rock and roll. Still like that old time of rock and roll. That kind of music just soothes my soul. I reminisce about the days of old with that old time of rock and roll. Won't go to hear 'em play a tango. I'd rather hear some blues or funky old soul. There's only one sure way to get me to go. Stop playing old time of rock and roll. Call me a relic, call me what you will. Say I'm old fashioned, say I'm over the hill. Today's music ain't got the same soul. I like that old time of rock and roll. Still like that old time of rock and roll. That kind of music just soothes my soul. I reminisce about the days of old with that old time of rock and roll.
Is that good? Is that good?
One more time, Grandpa.
Ski jumper, ski jumper, ski jumper, ski jumper.
Oh, so big.
Oh, bass jumper, bass jumper, bass jumper, bass jumper. Sunday afternoon, headed to the river with Patty.
I'm so glad we got it worked out. We're going to do an open mic, and I want to say something about that right now. We've heard so many stories, and we've already forgotten some of them. When I was just getting ready to leave for the U.S. Open last week, I had to go to the UPS store and return some Amazon stuff. And when I did, I'm standing there, and it was just myself, and then a lady walked in to fax something. And the guy was helping her, she was doing her thing, and I was talking to people, and she just started to cry. And I turned to look at her, and I thought, I wonder what those papers are. And of course, the thoughts went through my head, we can figure out what those things are. And then they asked me a question, so I turned back around, and then I didn't hear her crying anymore, and then I heard her start to cry again, and I turned, and she took some tissue out of her bag, and she was wiping her eyes, and I thought, that lady needs a hug. And then the person, my return was confusing, and so they asked me another question, and then they asked me for my phone, and I gave them my phone, and I turned around, and she was gone. But I heard her crying before she left, and I thought, she just left, and she was all alone. And I really regretted not putting my arm around her, not just stopping. I didn't have to do that. I don't care who's in line. I should have stopped and said something to her. And over the next few days, I thought to myself, if John was with me, that lady would have felt loved. And it didn't matter who was in line. It didn't matter what had to be done. He would have put his arm on her shoulder, and he would have loved her. We don't know where she went. We don't know, but we know she left alone. We're going to have an opportunity. There's only 30 minutes. And I know we've been here a long time. I could do this all night because I love hearing these stories. But we don't have all night. But what we do have is someone in the restroom with a camera that will take your stories and they'll preserve them. And Tally, and Nick, and Jonathan, and Patty, and Coda Bear. They deserve to hear those stories that they don't know. You have a chance today to do that. And if you're feeling nervous about it, or you don't want to do it, you don't want to get in front of camera, just ask yourself, would my best buddy, John Fagen, do that for me? Because he's your best buddy. We've learned that today. Would he do it for you? And we all know the answer is yes. So we're going to go ahead right now. The mic is going to be open for 30 minutes. So if you would like to speak and share a story about John, please do. So let's start a line. Please be respectful of other people's time and give it 3 minutes. You got our first one. Introduce yourself and share your story.
Well, there's a bunch of you here. My name is Matt Mahoney, and I am one of the many nephews. I've got the best job in the world, in my opinion, and I get to get up midnight, 1 o'clock, spend a couple hours driving to the woods, and I get to have my thoughts to myself. And for the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of thoughts, and I think I share a lot of the thoughts that a lot of you guys do about the why behind some of this. But I asked Patty if I could share some of my thoughts, and it's amazing to me because I haven't met a lot of the folks that spoke earlier. And my thoughts are just parallel to what everybody has spoke before. But growing up, Johnny was easy to have as an idol. He had big muscles. He had big adventures. He had no fear. And in all reality, there was no rules. But furthermore, he had the ability to make you feel like you were the center of the universe when he talked to you. And he made all of us feel that individually. He was my Uncle Johnny. But he was Wade's Uncle Johnny. He was Marion's Uncle Johnny. He was Casey's Uncle Johnny. And we all felt that individually. We went and saw him one time when we were in Seattle, and he taught my brother and I how to snorkel and scuba dive in the pool at the condo where they were living at. And I think that refers back to the no rules part of the whole thing, because I can't imagine that was just something that everybody got to do. But we took a one-day crash course with him there, and that got us our Fagen diving card to where we got to go night diving in the Puget Sound with him. At 10 or 12 years old, you know. He was the original Funkle, right? The fun uncle. And that role rolled right into Dad. I'm going to guess that he was fun Dad, right? And he let the discipline to Patty. But that role into dad was easy in my belief for him because of that making you feel like you were the only person in the room, the center of it. No matter however many people were there, you were everything. This family's had a lot of great dads and a lot of examples of great dads. But Johnny took a dad's involvement to an entire different level. He was there from the outside looking in for everything, for some badass kids, right? And he loved teaching, leading, sharing those adventures and that love of adventure to those kids. And it's been amazing. It didn't matter what they were doing, where they were going. These adventures took him across the nation, across the world, graduations from West Point, everything, and he was there for all of it. And it was just an amazing example to follow, right? We were headed to a rodeo for our son, and it was out east, and we called when we got into service, and we called Johnny and said, hey, do you want to see each other for a minute, you know? He whipped up some pizzas, and we met at the freeway on-ramp there, just right outside of town, and did the normal hugs and the, hey, how you doings, and you know, it was at that time that I got from him probably the greatest compliment of my life. And he told me at that point, he said, I'm so proud of what you're doing. I'm so proud that you're taking the time and doing this with your kids. And he told me, he said, I met with a financial advisor one time, and that financial advisor, he told me, he goes, John, you're spending too much money on going to all these places and doing all these things with your kids. You're not going to have any money to retire. You're not going to have any money to do anything. And he said, I don't care. I'd rather be broke than miss these memories. I don't know if that's a true story, but his timing was impeccable because it just was what I needed to hear, and he knew how to do that. He was amazing, and he left such a legacy to everybody here. And I'm so happy that you all got to share him as we did, because it's been amazing. As the song goes, we could have all missed the pain, but we'd had to miss the dance. Thank you.
So I'm not very good at speaking in front of people, so I'll just skip straight to the story. It was in Maryland for Nicholas's graduation. And I remember after flying out, we went down to this infield in the middle of the bleachers all over the place, and there was like a big wrestling mat. It was like probably 3 feet tall. And Uncle Johnny got up on one end of it, laid down on his back, and said, come here if you want to get thrown. And a whole line of kids, I don't think it was just cousins and friends and stuff, I think it was just a bunch of random kids who saw what was going on and wanted to get in on it. And I remember getting in line and seeing kids either put their back up against Johnny's feet, because he had them curled up on him, and then go flying, what seemed to me at the age of 8 or 9, flying 2 miles away. And then when I got up there, I put my chest up against his feet, and I nodded at him and said, ready? And then I went flying backwards, and I remember everything from my waist down hitting the mat, everything from my waist up falling off the mat. And I got up ready to be angry at him because, you know, he missed. He didn't land me on the tarp thingy. And I look up and I see him laughing his face off, rolling around on the ground, and all the other kids laughing. And so I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't be mad. Maybe I should just laugh too. That might be better. So I just started laughing. That's one of my best memories of Uncle Johnny. Thank you.
My name is Greg Parker, and I first met John at a wrestling tournament just after he had moved to Fruitland. I was referee, he was a coach, and we were in between some rounds, and he was sitting with some wrestlers with the Idaho Mountaineering Guidebook, looking and talking to them, and I walked by and he was telling his kids, yeah, we're gonna go do some adventures and climb these mountains and that. And I asked him, you know, that book's worse than drugs. And he goes, well, what do you mean? I said, you start doing the things and going places in that book and it'll consume your life. And he says, well, how do you know that? I says, well, I helped write that book. And it was, and unless I'm mistaken, this picture right here, I'm the one behind the camera taking that picture. That's the north face of Mount Bora, the tallest mountain here in Idaho. The other people that were in the group are also here today. John. John was one of our best climbing partners ever. He always had a positive attitude, no matter what the situation. He held our lives in his hands. On the end of a rope, we held his life in ours. I can say I was probably an instigator for a lot of the things that he did. I taught him how to ice climb. I taught him how to be in the mountains, took him on many first trips like Mount Rainier, Mount Hood. I drug him around places that I don't know that he would have ever found. Fished him out of the river in a kayak many, many times, and then he got better. He fished me out a couple of times, but he was always there. I can almost say, I don't know if I'm one of the few people in the world who was ever able to drive him to exhaustion. There was several trips that we had. This trip, we went to the end, so the pictures where you see him laying on the log, flat out on his back, the entire
And so he's back behind playing catcher, and this guy hits a pop fly to center field, and our center fielder just ducks a shot to home. Well, a guy was trying to tag him, and this guy was like probably bigger than me, and John just lowers his shoulder, waits for him to get close to the plate, and just tosses the guy over his head into the backstop. And we're like, John, it's church softball. Because it have to be so competitive. So needless to say, we had to rethink the next year, and John let it go. A couple of years passed. I met a new girl, and I saw my best friend. I'm like, hey, get married. My best friend says, I got the perfect day planned. He's like, John is going to take his right? So call my And so we see him paddling, and he's, pretty far ahead, probably like 50, 60 yards ahead. And all of a sudden we see him spin sideways and he has his camera ready. And sure enough, Jeff hits that rapid, and his kayak straight over the air, and I got a picture of it in my house. And it's just, you see it, it's just like this. Boom, hits the line. Those are up to us, two of my favorite memories of John. Today, I think tops it all. It really does. I look around the room, how many people are here. I pastor a small church up in the Grand.
John Wood took that as a challenge to make sure that I got a good session in, and we were just going after it. It was my senior year. I wasn't going to go easy on him just because he was much older than I. He had a lot more experience, so that made up for it. John's chest around that time. So this is that story. We were wrestling. I don't know how, but he got my head above, my ankle above his head, and then swept the leg, and somehow I ended up full weight, my knee, and destroyed his sternum. And he was down probably a solid 5 minutes. He finished practice, and I thought honestly that was going to be the end of his season. We had wrestled before, and that's obviously, that just happens in wrestling, that injuries hurt. But I got more context when I was visiting with John and Patty of how much damage I had actually done, and so I felt even more terrible at that time. Not only had I, removed a really good coach for potentially the rest of the season, he loved to demonstrate everything that he did. He didn't just talk about it, he showed you. And I potentially had taken that away. He was back so soon, and he figured it out. He was always in a lot of pain. He was in a ton of pain every time he came up to that wrestling room, but he didn't let him stop him, and just wanted to share that story and give you guys that context. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mason Cederoff. I was very privileged to get to coach with John and be coached by John, or Fagen as we always called him. And I was looking back through texts, and I was telling him how nervous I was about coaching pole vault after him. And his exact reply was, "It's an odyssey, a phenomenal challenge. You're the man for the job," and that just always is going to stick with me. So I just wanted to share that.
I'm Murray Clark from Twin Falls, Idaho. I met John at the Boy Scouts of America Scout Camp. 3 hours later, John and I were climbing a rock in the middle of the night on a full moon. I introduced John to the mooner on the full moon. Mooner on Hayburn, mooner on the Grand Mogul, mooner on the north face of Mount Bora, mooner on the Grand Teton. I invited John on a trip down to southern Utah, canyoneering. Do you remember the green Suburban that had a bajillion miles on it, but it had an iPod connection? At 3:30 a.m., going 80 miles an hour down a 2-lane road, John played me the song from REO Speedwagon, Ride the Storm Out. I love John. I spent many times on the mountains with John, and I would show up at the Payette River unannounced, 22,500 CFS, Nick. There's John and Nick. Nick's flown some mighty fine aircrafts, but he was never as scared as when I ran over him in my boat. In Mike's Hole. I was there when Jonathan threw the best takedown ever on his dad after he won the state championship. And I received a phone call from John when he finished his climbing wall in his house. He was so proud because Tally could climb on the wall. It was so great. My favorite story of John, I called him one day at 3 o'clock. I was in Twin Falls, and I said, "John, how you doing today?" He said, "Murray, it really sucks. I'm really pissed off." And I said, "Well, what's wrong?" He said, "I don't know. I'm just in a bad mood." I said, "Well, what are you doing now?" He said, "I just got done doing push-ups." I said, "Doing push-ups?" He said, "Yeah." I told myself I would do 10 push-ups every time I came into my office to help me get out of my bad mood. I said, "Well, how many push-ups have you done?" He said, "I don't know. I'm over 300. I love John. Climb on, John. And someday, I'm going to see you at the top. That's what I do.
I'm Barry Fagen, John's older brother. I'd rather be getting a log from the woods to the mill than be here. And I just want to thank the community and everything for what they've done for Johnny and putting all this together. You've already heard all the stories, so mine you wouldn't want to hear anyway. Thank you very much, the whole community.
All right, one last song. This is, in my opinion, John's favorite song. Okay. Well, Mama told me when I was young to sit beside me, my only son, and listen closely to what I say. And if you do this, it'll help you some sunny day, yeah. Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Oh, take your time. Don't live too fast. Troubles will come, and they will pass. You'll find a woman, oh baby, you find love. And don't forget, son, there is a someone up above. Baby, be a simple kind of man, and be a something you love and understand. Baby, be a simple, yeah, be a simple man. I want you to do this for me, son, if you can. If you can. Forget your lust for the rich man's gold. All that you need now is in your soul. And you can do this, oh baby, if you try. Another one for you, my son, is to be satisfied. Baby, be a simple kind of man, and be a something you love and understand. Baby, be a simple, yeah, be a simple man. I want you to do this for me, son, if you can. Baby, be a simple, yeah, a simple man. I want you to do this for me, son, if you can. Forget your lust for the rich man's gold. All that you need now is in your soul. And you can do this, oh baby, if you try, yeah. All that I want for you, my son, is to be satisfied. Baby, be a simple, yeah, be a simple man. I'll be a something, yeah, love and understand. Baby, be a simple, yeah, be a simple man. I want you to do this for me, son, if you can, yeah, if you can. Love you, John.
There's food outside, there's a camera in the restroom room.
Thank you all for coming. Please share your stories about John.